game... Does Gartic phone not have any music? I guess not.
I don't think it has really its own. You could throw on some if you want.
Yeah, let me see if...
Something nerdy or something. Oh, I should exit Halo. I'm still in Halo.
Yeah.
Ba, 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 bump. I'm enjoying Star Wars, but it was me, Dio. Oh my god, I just looked at memes.
Yes, it's that link. Yep, it should bring you in.
Eat!
Shiny the cactus, I like.
Yay!
I just found some upbeat music.
Yeah.
Wait a second, I can also turn on...
It is the Gartic egg. Nice. Borger.
Apparently, Borger. You are Borger.
Voice chat optional. You don't have to be in voice chat, but we're in event chat if you want to join.
Yeah, we are in event chat if you want to. We're just chilling. I think these are okay presets, right? Like the dynamic trigger, so like when about half the people say they're done, then it starts the timer for like the minute left.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that going to give people too much time for like our artsy friends and we just do normal?
Oh, I mean, I don't care if you want to do it quick.
Or how about we do it slow so that there is a max time, but that's probably
whatever people feel like. I understand because me and Artistic are in here. Although I think Gamer also said they draw, so...
Yep. Hello.
There's multiple artists, so I don't care if you want to do speedy.
Well, no, I'll just set it to slow, so that way it's like the timer's always going, but there's more time.
Hello. I will make the timer go quick.
Excellent.
Me draw fast.
Draw fast.
And I guess like the only rules is like nothing that Twitch would get us banned for.
I just want to jump into a meeting. I'll play at 3 p.m. Yeah, that's fine. We're gonna play past 3, so.
Yep.
Feel free.
As long as people are having fun.
Ready.
I also draw the quick because I grew up drawing with ink pens a lot.
Ooh, I love ink pens.
I'm drawing with a mouse and keyboard, and let's see how this goes.
Oh boy.
Ready. Let's give it a shot.
How's this working? Oh, sentence.
Write a sentence.
Oh.
There. I just realized how weird mine was. Oh boy.
Wow, that's okay.
Okay, what a start. Okay.
Okay. How much time do we have for this?
It should be like 2 minutes or a little more. Or no, sorry, I don't know. I set it to slow time, so it should have quite a bit of time. It's in the upper right, the little circle, Bob.
Ah, the little thing that somehow resembles a Pac-Man for some reason to my eyes. No, I'm not obsessed. I don't know what you're talking about.
Wait, where's the timer? I don't see a timer, okay.
It's like that, it's just that circular thing in the corner. It's not really,
Ah, okay, that's not that bad.
Screaming manatee eats a jalapeno.
Excellent. Actually, I should probably be slightly hiding that so people don't know what I'm drawing. That's part of the goal, right?
Oh, probably?
Oh.
I totally forgot about that. Let me just copy my bar. Copy. Because then people can see it all at the end. Paste to duplicate.
Right, shade.
Bar 2. Wham. There. Now no one will know.
And no one
They'll
was
just see me
the wiser.
They'll see me drawing and they'll have no idea what I'm drawing.
They see me sketching. They hate.
That's so specific. Meeting is dumb anyway, so hopefully it doesn't last the full half an hour.
I think I'm adding too much detail in mine.
I'm just...
I got a prompt that I think I might know who it's from just based on the conversations I've had here a little bit, but I'm not going to say anything.
I don't know if I'm gonna do much color.
Gosh, that drawing tweak. I shouldn't be looking on stream, should I? I just realized.
I mean, seeing the
I
drawing
can't
is
because
fine.
I'm on my tablet.
Because it'll just become another prompt. But people, you're gonna have to, or whoever gets it's just gonna have to guess what it is anyway.
Hopefully mine would be obvious.
That's the thing. As long as I hide the top part, I should be good. Because then it's like you don't know what I'm responding to, and then you just have to guess what mine is when you get it.
Oh, he's
Guess
very
it's
distinguished.
Yeah.
What
Very
a
fancy.
distinguished
Indubitably.
little fella.
He's very fancy.
I do enjoy a good pepper, sir.
Quite. Ah.
Yes. Oh, yes, indeed.
Oh, quite, yes.
That burns quite ferociously, my good man.
I can taste the seasonings.
I'm sure it'll hurt as much coming out later.
Johnny Cash was right about the Ring of Fire. Okay, that's too far. I'm sorry.
Oh god. Oh. This was a pretty good music to put on in the background.
I actually like Gartic phone more than like Drawful and stuff. It's more calmer. It's like more
Yeah.
relaxing.
Oh,
What's a calm?
we're getting down to the yellow timer. Whatever that
They
means.
are no.
I'm good enough. I'm done.
Whatever the yellow timer means. I'm interested to see, because this is just
Yeah,
telephone,
sure, I'm
right?
done.
So then someone's going to get this picture and have to write what it is. That's a
just-
cool picture.
I just realized that there were line weights. Oh well.
Okay, describe the
I
scene.
approve of that. Yes. Yes. Oh shit, I'm supposed to type a description. Oh, there's time. It's fine, it's fine.
Skeletor loses his skull.
That's what I'm
Which is
guessing.
Which is a what?
That's a guess. It's a good picture, though.
Mhm.
I don't know who it is
They're
or what it's
funny.
supposed to be, but it's a good picture.
What? I love this prompt. Whoever gave me this.
Skeletor beat He-Man.
I'm gonna. I know what this is kind of supposed to be.
That
On
is
the
the-
debate. It's a different meaning.
That's ugliest.
Is that like Zelda?
Yeah, pretty much. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay.
This was a little more sketchy than the last one.
Ah, it's a fish bowl with a little tiny goldfish.
It's a fish.
What's he got?
Can I change the size of my ink brush? Yeah, by a little bit.
I just found that out too.
Oh, right. I should be writing letters. That'd be kind of against the spirit of the game. So, I got something that is like I should have drawn a very specific way, but I took a really weird take on it just to throw it off. Just for the fun of it.
Fantastic.
That's perfectly fine.
A distinguished little fishy that just pooted.
Yep. Good luck figuring out what this one's supposed to be. I mean, whoever wrote it's gonna know, but...
Yeah, I'm not paying
my
attention to the
gosh.
screen. I don't wanna cheat. Plus
I'm
my
trying not
tablet
to,
is
but
the other-
it's a temptation, and I'm trying not to.
I mean, it shouldn't be a problem anyway, because whoever gets this just has to guess what it is. You guys don't know what my prompt is. So,
I'm not saying anything either way.
only the person that wrote the prompt would know what the prompt is. Yeah.
Right.
I am again getting too detailed in my drawing.
I do the same thing sometimes. I'm trying
It's
not
so
to.
fun, though.
Yeah.
And you have like a really wacky idea, and you just want to go with it. I think I needed this today. Thank you.
Oh, I'm happy.
How much time I got left? Do I have time to color? Probably. We'll see. There. Good enough.
Hello?
I can get the idea across vaguely enough.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I think I know who this is now. Or what this is.
Brilliant.
Sure.
Is it Finding Nemo?
I mean, I was about to say, is that the girl from Finding Nemo?
That's what I was trying to draw, but
I can see the braces. Just
Yeah, exactly.
may or may not be completely unrelated.
Hey, Shiny.
Describe this scene.
what am I looking at?
Oh,
I'm
Shiny can't
scared.
talk. Oh my god, its face! Look at that face.
What?
Oh,
Pikachu sucks again.
I don't know what I'm typing. Let's go with it. I'm scared.
this is not. This is definitely not what this is. But
Tweak, no. No, Tweak, no. No, Tweak, no.
I mean,
even
look at
know.
that face.
No.
Beautiful.
What exactly? That's what I was thinking. It's great though. Okay, here we go. The flutter coming.
Shiny.
Oh.
Free. You got a free Shiny. I don't know why they're muted.
Why is shiny muted?
Oh.
There we go. Free shiny.
Hello. No.
Okay, sorry.
control.
Okay. Man witnessed wrath before drowning to death. The heavens open with a thunderous fart during the floods. Yep, that's exactly what
We
it
got
was.
back to the floods. We got back to the floods.
You got it.
Right on.
Oh my
Heavens
god.
open up under his fart.
McDarbo's album. Soot throwing a bomb at Tweak. Okay, okay, fair enough. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. Eldritch Blast. Oh, fair enough.
The fact that I draw that one specifically, though, is hilarious.
Oh, a soft drink. Oh.
And you were drawing it in the no thanks.
Oh my god, I love that one so much.
Suck some can. Still alive? Hello, hello. We just
Yeah, it's
started
only
doing
for a
Gartic
few more
That was
hours,
good.
and
I like
we
that
might
one.
be free unless the universe says no, which
Fish
is chat.
eating taco.
Chat controls us.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and then And then Goldfish enjoys Taco Tuesdays. Ah, okay. And then I was
I
like,
thought I had for lunch today.
Goldfish passing
Goldfish
gas.
passing gas.
Oh, no.
That was all relevant. I think that was a good.
I just
mean,
looked at chat and
sense to me.
Raffles like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, that was reasonable. I liked it.
Yeah.
By the power of Grayskull. Oh, that makes so much more sense now. Skeletor loses his skull, which is his head.
He-Man stole it.
Hey man, give it back!
See,
Not again!
Got your head and your bone.
oh my god.
Oh, like a picture was words.
This was more like a short story.
No,
Did he even go for hair loss?
Yeah, he did.
Got your nose, Skeletor.
Man,
I know. We can all have our drawings tweaked back and forth.
yeah.
We're
For still
Dapper
eating.
seal eating peppers. Oh,
there
Okay,
it
that's
is.
cute.
oh
I
yeah,
like
that
that.
worked out.
I
Yeah.
don't like to feel good.
I like to feel evil.
Seafood.
Seal
It
loves
looks like
seafood.
shrimp, I
Wow,
can see
that was good. I liked
That one
these.
stayed pretty much same all throughout.
It's so kawaii.
Yeah, it was
Some
so.
of them fit well, and then others are just random inserts.
So if more people want to join, feel free. Oh, perfect. There we go. Turns.
Nice,
So how does
nice,
this work?
uh,
How many turns all? Should we do the most turns just so we get the most like confusing stuff? Because if we do
Sounds fun.
wait, all turns is 19 minutes. Most turns. Oh no, all is better. Okay. Weird.
Oh, this is
That
fun.
didn't seem like enough turns.
Almost. I'm the guy with
What's
the pen.
200% of the turn? 200% of the turns makes it
I
great. Okay, we'll
wanted
just
to
do
do this
it.
more
It's fine.
on my art days. So I'm glad we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I didn't know I can join.
Yeah. Yeah, if anyone wants to hop in, feel free.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I
Give
thought
it a
you-
couple seconds.
Well, yes, you can.
Yeah.
I
Man,
didn't
it's
realize it was a Twitch game.
Oh yeah, this is just a free browser game, yeah, and then you can log
Yeah,
in
yeah.
with your Twitch or your
I
Discord
wanna
or
just do this with a group of artist friends one day.
yeah.
See how ridiculous that gets.
All operating systems compatible and is using DOS.
Yeah. Oh, we should do our giveaway actually while people are hopping. Last
Right.
chance, by the way, if anyone wants to sign up for the Naruto Tuboruto Shinobi Strikers.
Alright, I'm gonna go use the bathroom then quick.
heard of Naruto, but what on earth's a Baruto?
I don't know what
It sounded like it said Barto.
Barto. It's Bartman.
Bartman.
Duff Man?
Duff man? It's the Duff. Duff, but yeah.
Brown patch into the little H2O. Oh,
Yeah, I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah.
I don't know if Hayak or Wrathful or any of you guys want to join. Is there a racer in this game? There isn't a racer. Sorry, I didn't see that. There isn't a racer. They give you a lot of stuff. Okay, I'm gonna close that giveaway.
Duff Man. Can't
Which I
wait.
can guess
Oh,
who's
no.
gonna win it. It's exactly who I thought was going.
Oh my god.
What are the chances? 100% apparently.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that's the thing with giving away specific games too. People are like, "Oh, I want that one." And that's how you get the games you want.
Out of my way, it's mine.
But excellent. Yeah, I haven't played like any of the Naruto games since I had them on 360. I think the last thing I remember from Naruto was Gaara turning good, and that was as far as I got.
That's an alliteration
It
of all
was
its own.
good. Oh, it's supposed to make sense. He's got love on his forehead.
Yeah, he's always been love. It was all a ploy.
It was all a cunning ploy.
Okay, so let's get rid of that.
I
Let's
thought
go
it was an
here.
anime.
How about Fable Anniversary for Steam? People like Fable, right?
I have never played.
It is
You know,
quite
I
a fun
think there
game.
might be a way of getting 2 game keys of the same game.
Oh,
Because if you have an Epic Games account and the game also exists on Steam, you can purchase the game on Epic, take the code and put it into your Steam account, and get a refund of the same game on the Epic Store.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure how that would. I mean, it might.
Oh no, it works. Cynical Brit did it, and it's like, this does work.
Oh,
I am back. I
that's
wanted to grab a pop
unfortunate.
too.
They definitely need to. Well, I mean, it's good that
Apparently
they don't have
it's
it
been
fixed.
going on
But...
for years.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But the next one is Fable Anniversary Steam Key. You'll be in the next round. Okay, so we'll
Wait a second.
do this
I
round.
think I have that.
Fable.
Fable is a good one, yeah.
No, wait, I have the Lost Chapters. Is the Anniversary different?
I failed.
I believe so. Everyone top of it? Tickle. Are you tickling it?
I apparently don't have the Anniversary.
I'm
Sorry, I
a good
love
tickle.
Fable.
Only
Did someone
drawings.
just level up?
Only a sentence at the beginning and the end. Everything has to be drawings in the middle.
Oh!
Draw a drawing based on this drawing. Is that how it would do it? I have no idea how that would.
I apologize, Shiny. Giveaways are for subs.
Yes.
I know.
Oh. Subs are on sale right now.
Indeed. So are gifted subs.
Yeah, they added the gifted sub sale as well.
That was like really
It's
recent.
up. Wink wonk.
Wonk wonk. Swing swang.
Craft a word thing.
Write a sentence. Ooh.
I'm making this just really weird just for the sake of it, to make it a little difficult, but funny.
There we go. That'll do.
Whoever gets this one, I am sorry in advance. I couldn't help myself.
No.
Excellent.
Mine is fantastic.
What is that?
Oh, that's interesting.
Huh. How am I gonna do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do.
I need a reference. Well, actually, I'll just use what I have.
Man, this one's gonna be hard.
I had to actually look this up because I was like, what?
Oh, I had the eraser still on.
Nope. Undo, please.
What the hell?
Student. Oh, right. Okay. Do this.
I'm glad most of these are nerdy.
Man, this is hard.
Which time do we go? Left. Alright. No, I hate when I try to use the fill tool and I don't quite have everything sealed.
There's an undo button, it's fine.
That is true. That is true. So let me do a quick coloring.
Thank you to whoever gave. Thank you whoever gave me this. Oh my god.
Potentially welcome, but unsure.
If you got mine, I'm going to love it.
I'm so happy. It's hilarious.
Dang it. How bad was I had to line art this one?
Oops.
The amusement amuses me. Forget it. The field tool's taking too much time. I'm just gonna do it as freehand. Save me, large brush.
Okay, this is good. This is good.
Ooh, I almost forgot that. Let's do that real quick.
Oh, that's the noise.
Oh, what's your new button? Ah, that eraser.
I did
I'll
it.
have to. I could probably add more lines. Yeah.
3, 2. It's actually not that close, but. Who
Cutie,
wants free anxiety? 3, 2.
Let's
No!
Cue the Sonic the Hedgehog drowning sound from the old games.
Also bad.
That's a real source of anxiety. The bubble. Just drowning. Like, that's kind of grim.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Your turn.
Describe the scene.
Yes.
I actually ran out of room to type this description. Oh my god.
I'm proud
I
of
bet
this
I
one.
I
nailed
had to
it.
review.
Mine is spot on. There's nothing else it could possibly be.
Oh, damn.
Excellent.
Oh my gosh.
Now we draw again now?
Yep.
Mm.
Because we have enough players now, we got the.
Yay.
What the hell is this?
That could be any number of drawings at this point. Is there a move tool or is it? Okay, I'm just gonna have to walk around this.
I have no idea how to draw this.
Use a different interpretation, maybe?
Nah.
Like I did with the Eldritch
You
Blast.
might have got the one I answered because I gave it a very vague.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm drawing this. I think it goes for most like Gartic games. Oh, I can't believe I'm drawing this.
Yup.
Oh, undo.
I don't even know what the hell this looks like.
Don't be afraid to like search things if you have to. I had to.
Actually,
I am, but I still don't.
Oh,
still don't know.
Sorry.
That's how bad it is. Yeah. Wait, I want to go. I don't even know if I can add that in the way I want to. That's the front, right? Okay, so let me go like this. Then add this. my god, this is so dumb.
This is going to be very sketchy, but I think probably too much detail because of it. Again.
Done.
That looks
Perfect.
I'm not gonna say what that looks like. I know what it looks like, but I'm just gonna. Oh my goodness! What am I looking at, Tweak?
Dude, my brother's hovering over me right now, and he's like, "What the fuck is that?"
Oh no!
Put on
This explains so much of my childhood. Tweak, did you stay up multiple days in a row again?
Yeah, maybe.
Would writing speech text be considered cheating in this one?
Depends on how you do it.
The text I'm writing is completely unrelated. But
Alright, alright. I was wondering. Your Pac-Man's running out. I mean, your timer's running out.
It will forever be a
Your
mystery.
pizza's almost gone.
I figure text as long as it's completely like unrelated to the thing is probably alright.
A pie in time!
There we go.
I worry about that thing's feet.
No, fuck.
Oh my god.
It looks like it's doing it. God.
Those guys trying to use his own hat.
No.
Oh my goodness.
What the?
Oh.
This? Okay, wow, this is pretty much spelled out for me.
How do I describe it?
That's the only description I'm gonna give it.
Cursed. Excellent.
Let's see if I can change this around, but still describe.
Ooh, that almost looks like Kellogg's special cake.
Perfect.
Special.
There we go, that works.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Em.
Whoa. God, Jesus Christ. Okay, hold on.
Okay, I'm going to
How
do
the
this
heck
in
do
the
I draw
sneakiest way
this?
possible.
Oh my god.
What?
Okay.
Oh, at least I got a reference for this one.
The fuck? Is Ciabatta in here? I swear to God.
I don't know what's going on, but I'm already amused for some reason. this one is going to be very symbolic. I don't know how else to put it. Guess that just about sums it up, really. Okay.
Whoever got mine, I'm sorry.
Rock and stone.
More veins.
TOS?
DOS?
Dio.
Dio?
Oh.
What is
The
this?
Dio.
Yeah, good luck figuring out what this is. I had to draw it in 3 parts.
I have a hunch on some of it, but I'm not sure how to describe it.
I even censored my own work for Twitch.
You mean that's not ketchup?
You don't censor the blood splatter.
Oh, so it's not ketchup.
It's banana juice. Didn't we realize
Actually,
it's red?
there it is, a red banana ketchup
Nana
sauce.
Cobain.
It's a Filipino condiment food.
It's perfect. Oh,
Oh, I've been only using the
Such a
black and white.
zero.
I'm gonna throw the.
Oh yeah. Battle. Battle is ready.
It is a battle.
If I was a battlefield.
Oh yeah, the battlefield. Hey, Lucy. Hello, Mister. How are you?
He is awake and demands attention.
It is awake.
I
It's a
can't draw to
story
save
and
my
I'm
life.
attached.
The story is important.
The Gartic lore.
The Gartic lore. You could
Yeah.
really phone it in.
Good call.
I don't get it.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Eh.
Oh god. Uh-oh. Just like 2 seconds. 2
The
seconds.
Krusty the Clown laugh.
Yep.
Our burgers are now only 90%
That's okay.
recycled.
Okay, I'm ready to watch these.
Oh no.
Oh,
Automatic
the madness.
voiceover. Sure. Should we have voiceover for the sentences?
Oh, what does that do?
I think it makes an automatic voice, like it reads the sentences.
Yeah,
Oh, like text to
TTS.
speech.
Oh, sure.
Why not?
How do I join? Oh, as soon as the thing's over, I'll post the link again. As soon as this round's over.
Yeah.
Secret source of goblin power.
Secret
Oh, no.
source of the Goblin power.
Oh!
This is the first hour from me.
Goblins ruin
Well, look at that. That is
Oh.
beautiful.
Oh! My cabbage!
Evil keep attacking the cabbage.
Oh!
Oh my god.
Well, that was the thing. Can I save this? I can save it.
Yeah.
Some more
Good.
Just stop. Save. Excellent. That was cool.
We got fan art!
The moon is a warlock and the sun is its patron.
Oh, that's what that was.
Oh. Okay.
Oh.
See,
The now moon attacks the Patreon sun with the power of rocks.
You got the mullet.
Oh God, this is
When
oh.
a crows
Lock into the sun before ending its life.
Oh.
They got really twisted.
Well, I'm gonna say that as well because that was a story right there. That was a story. That was
warlock.
Oh, okay.
Oh
Yep.
my god.
Okay.
Ebidab.
Good.
A dragon doing the dab after a defeat.
So I took that translation and made that.
Oh.
Dragon go boom.
Dragon go
Literal. Excellent.
Tues gluten-free now with 20% more vitamin
Oh.
Ooh. Oh.
Oh, this is the
Oh.
gluten-free one.
bread.
This is what was bothering me! Oh my
This is
god!
mine. This is mine.
Okay, so I wonder who was the blood for this one for the writing.
I was actually questioning, like, is Ciabatta, like, in here, like, but just, like, quiet? Like, I actually was like,
Needed
what
the
the hell?
double.
Wow, that's not what I was expecting.
What a mid-bite. Oh, dear.
Huh. Let's get rid of that before Twitch TOS is made.
I didn't think that was super sexual, but I mean,
No,
it's
it's
fair.
I like how you took that translation of it.
Oh, I went super cool.
That's not Tweak, that's not drunk.
No, that's not drunk. I went full cool.
Oh, it changed my answer to furry, not Furby.
I mean,
that triple had an adventure.
It's good. So it's scratching her horns. Okay.
Oh! That's not what I
Sort reflecting on her life.
Oh no!
Okay, I can't draw, so
is this gonna
body.
No, I get it. It looks good. That's how I took it.
Wow, that was good. All those stories went very well.
Yeah.
But it's not Banana doing something horrible that Twitch didn't recommend.
That was a bad one. That was perfectly reasonable. Okay, let me invite anyone who wants to hop in. There's the invite link.
Now is the time.
You can join us. Oh my god.
This is hilarious.
I'm gonna refill my water again. I've been drinking it because I keep laughing. Oh.
Hey man, make sure you hydrate.
Oh, hydration.
I really should have done that when you were drinking. I just realized. Oh dear.
Very air has joined.
Yeah. Yay. I mean, this is already a mess. This is already a mess.
Draped again.
I accidentally booped Lucy.
How could you?
He was under my feet.
Wow.
The booping of the snooting.
Oh, prepare for the mess of drawing? That's fine. I'm using it. You've seen how good my drawings are.
That banana will never be the same. It was 2 days away from retirement.
That
Anyone else?
gluten-free one got...
Oh my gosh.
Why is Dharma so far away from the rest of us? You separated him so far.
Oh, that's just because from Deep Rock Galactic. Why is he all the way over there?
I'm invisible.
Everyone's just hiding.
I'm a Paco, so I'm naturally invisible.
It all makes sense now.
I don't know how to set my avatar so it shows up.
Oh, I'd have to get the individual react links and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where is...
I mean, I could send that if you want, but there's no need.
That's fine. The only reason these two are on because I left them on by accident. But that's fine.
And that's also because we stream together a lot.
That makes sense. I don't want to impose my character on stream.
The group ones are kind of awkward because they never size correctly, so it's just better to get the individual.
So I said this is my first time actually getting to play Gartic phone. Oh, that's awesome.
This is my first time too, and I think this is more fun than any other drawing game. It's just so stupid.
According to the Reactor Link wiki, it was me, Theo, the whole time. Oh, I need to write a sentence. What's the foot?
Oh, come on.
No one will know what this is.
I don't have enough room for my sentence.
Uh-oh. The sentence timer is a lot shorter than the other timer.
Phew, just made it.
Got it, just barely. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
I don't want to draw this. I don't want to draw this.
All right.
I don't want to draw. I'll try.
How do I draw this?
How do I draw this in a wholesome interpretation is what I want to know.
What the hell did this... What?
What the hell? Oh my god.
Oh god.
I don't know how to do this one now.
Okay, this is not going to be...
Yeah, must get it perfect. Perfect.
I don't even know what this guy looks like, actually. Hang on a minute. Okay, I'm gonna have that searched. Okay. Oh dear. I have to draw that. Okay, I think I have a way of interpreting this. That is a... I don't think I have time for color for this one.
Oh crap.
Oh man, I'm not gonna have time to finish it. That's crazy.
Oh shit, timer's almost up. Shit.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Close enough. This is my least favorite one I've drawn.
I don't even know what the hell I just did.
I did a very weird interpretation of what I got.
Brilliant.
No,
I didn't. Oh well, good enough, I guess. People will have to figure that one out.
It was way too much of a detailed description.
People will figure it out, I'm sure.
Man.
Yep.
Describe this.
Describe it quick. Describe it quick. That was so hard to draw, yeah.
Oh my god.
I have no idea if my thing went through or not.
Oh my god, what the heck?
How am I supposed to draw this?
Oh my god.
Okay, that and that colour.
Man, these are like really...
People are getting more creative with their prompts.
Oh my god, it's long too.
That's what she said. And there we have it.
what those things look like, actually. I can't quite remember.
Oh, man.
I have no idea how I was meant to draw this.
Very, very carefully.
With all the skill you can.
Close enough.
That'll do. Maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't.
Am I drawing yours? I hope I did it justice.
Oh, you might have. I don't know.
The prompts are so good.
God.
Amazing.
What the heck?
Yes.
You okay there, Tweak?
Nope.
Oh!
Oh, no,
I
okay.
got my sentence. It finished on me.
Oh.
What the hell is that?
I don't know what this is meant to be.
Even more confused than it already is. Let's put
And
this way.
And then
Eh.
and then that there. That makes sense there. No. No.
Is this even a word?
Maybe not. Who knows anymore?
Oh man, this is gonna be fun. I'm not sure if I should choose that word or a different word.
You need to stop putting too much detail in these stupid things.
I can't even take time to do detail because of the timer. I'm just like trying to let go.
Oh my gosh! Mamma mia! Is he the one that toads?
He's the one
I'm
that
the one that toads.
Wow, whoever got my stick man, you're welcome.
Coach, we have fresh meat. Oh no.
I'll,
The hell is this?
I don't. Okay, I know what it is, but I'm trying to think of a weird way to describe it to music.
Yeah.
Let's choose us home.
I hope one of the more artsy people gets my prompt.
I think we might be on
think I
prompt
got all of
7
them.
now, yeah. We did it.
Oh, I was hoping someone would try to draw what I wrote, but that's okay.
Okay, let's see.
Dang. It's gonna be interesting.
Here we go.
Oh boy.
Furry used turtle fighting a plumber in a cat suit.
Furry turtle.
Oh, now I get what that was.
I couldn't even finish it. I was like, oh man.
No, that's fair.
Mustache animal man versus
Mustache man faces angry face.
That was the only one like I actually did not finish. I was like, damn it.
Oh no!
Oh!
Wow.
Charlie Brown doesn't like
Good
Well,
grief.
I guess that's.
Yeah, good grief.
So Mario and Bowser are just Charlie Brown and a cat. It all makes sense.
Actually, I'm glad to see Bowser and Mario like going against each other on streams, like just trying to get the most follows or something. Oh my god!
Beautiful, beautiful.
Drones take over the world.
Oh no.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Oh.
No, that's
That's literal.
Is it wrong though?
Calling home.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're at my.
Some guy creeping around someone's house looking for cheese.
Oh. Oh.
Well.
cheesy
normal.
cheesy den.
Creeping on that cheesy den.
That's not very.
Damn it, I should have said beans!
Wait, we
Not
didn't
very
even.
good. You can do cheddar than that.
I guess a den is in the world. That's what stayed in that one.
Oh god. Oh yeah!
Oh, you were the one
no.
to blame for this one.
Oh no.
Yes!
It says wide on the
This
sticker.
scarecrow is lonely.
God.
Needs help a huggy pillow.
What the?
I have no idea what a team.
The temple.
Damn it,
Little
dyslexia.
a tense smile.
Wow. I see. So that.
It kind of went back around and I hate it.
The system works.
It works. It's perfect. Flawless.
Big bad bottom burp.
Ha!
I have no idea.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oopsie poopsie smile.
Okay.
That's where that came from. What do I have?
Giggle pooper or something.
Oh.
Yeah. How do you spell that within the timer? It is crazy. It has so much talking.
I was concerned for him!
A lot of the artists are cheating with tablets. No, I'm just kidding. They're using tablets.
Hey. We just have a
Minigun
natural.
wielding mushroom being attacks a goblin with pens.
Oh,
Oh.
with pens. Oh.
Oh.
You-
Go
I thought it was. I thought it was glow sticks.
Oh.
Oh.
I
Code has
see.
gone bad.
Yeah. This makes sense.
Code 47.
Toad the Hustler
That one stayed pretty on point,
okay.
honestly. That worked.
Master Chief's
Oh, that one. Yeah, I didn't finish in time.
Alright.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Dumbstick Master Chief.
Yay! Good.
Why did that
enough.
make me think of like Homer Simpson in Spartan outfit scratching his butt?
Oh
Among
yeah.
Us dude has aggressive farts.
Oh.
That's aggressive.
Okay.
Yes.
A lot of these.
Angry face.
fart.
I noticed a lot of these have turned into pooting or pooping.
Nothing y'all want to tell us?
Pikachu takes McDonald's by force.
Oh, that was the
Okay.
prompt. Oh.
Okay. Yeah. See. I think I did a good job.
How to get a Pikachu into a McDonald's. Pokemon.
Okay, this made me amused.
Hey, Pokemon.
That one was
Recatch
pretty
up
good.
there.
Ooh.
Pikachu needs that McDonald's sauce.
I thought you were struggling to try and spell Szechuan.
Give some thought.
Yeah.
Pikachu crying give sauce.
Give sauce.
That one stayed on point.
That one, yep.
Oh my god.
That was good.
That was really good. That was fun.
Oh man, that was hilarious.
That was some good ones.
Hey man, why did that electric rodent going into the local fast foodery? Oh fudge. I've been taken over by a Porky Pig.
Christian Stewart. What?
Sean Connery.
I was hoping it was gonna do like single sentence or single drawing as we did.
You gotta move Verrier.
Hello. Oh,
hello.
You gotta move her.
I'm giant.
She's vlogging artistic.
She's crushing us.
Oh my god. Actually, yeah, it was only artistic. You're being crushed.
What?
There we go. We saved you.
Heard of art block before, but
Number one.
Okay, that works. Or you could like probably
We fixed
like
it.
make them bigger. I don't know, or make it smaller so you can see the images better.
Nah, we fixed it. We're good.
Okay. Okay. We good.
Anyone that wants to hop in, let me pass the invite link again. Also, I think our background music disappeared. Yes, it did. Somewhere nowhere lo-fi beats? Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I was thinking host decision though.
Hey, stop that.
We could do like only a sentence at the beginning and the end, which could be kind of fun. Just trying to interpret artwork to artwork to artwork until the very
end. Get screwed up really fast.
see how bad it gets screwed up. Writing only at the end. You only get to guess what it is at the end. Let's do beginning and end. That sounds crazy. We'll turn it back on slow. That last round wasn't on slow. Excellent. Secrecy. No one knows what each drawing is. Oh.
Is this one where we have to trace it?
No. This is still. I can hold on. What other presets do we have?
Is that like an animated version? Yeah,
try to replicate the drawings as it gets faster.
Oh.
That could be fun. It would just get worse and worse.
It'd be easier for some of us compared to others, to
That's
be
true.
honest.
Icebreaker. Play with just one sentence, ask questions, and have fun with others' drawings. What does this one do?
It's compliment.
Person does like just a simple line at the beginning, and then the next person
start with
adds
line,
a little more to it, and then the
that
next
sounds
person
fun.
adds more to it.
So you don't, really... Yeah, we kind of all add on to the same drawing? That sounds kind of cool.
Okay, so we're not flattering the artwork.
That's what I see the most of this game.
I guess I should leave it basics. Turn. Okay, yeah, let's try this one. So we just have to add a little bit to the drawing each time. Just try to keep making the drawing. Start with sketching some basic lines.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. Cool.
Oh, it started. What am I supposed to draw?
Just some basic lines.
Basic lines, not too complicated.
Yeah.
Oh, it's quick.
Yeah. Yeah, the point's just to like make something, someone else continues the drawing, and then the next person continues the drawing. And we only find out at the end.
I made something really abstract. There you go.
It's very quick, yeah, it's already done.
I feel like I have an unfair advantage of how quickly I sketch.
Do I have to retrace the image that's already there?
No, you just add on to it.
Oh wait, do we have lots of time to do this drawing? We don't have to...
We have more time.
It's just the first
It was just the first one, huh?
I see.
I thought it was going to be short on each one.
second frame, I already added a little color. I'm so sorry.
I added a decent bit.
Also, whoever got mine is very abstract, and I'm sorry, but maybe not.
Sorry, but not sorry.
And it will make for an interesting little creative exercise.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for some amazing art to come my way, and I'm like, how should I ruin this?
Yeah, exactly. How do I...
Exactly. That's what I'm doing.
Among Us Dummy Thick Master Chief.
Hey, Ciabatta. Hello.
Hey, Ciabatta.
Welcome, welcome. We're just doing a random Gartic phone.
Yep.
And by that, I mean, like, the game that we're playing is very random.
The hell is this?
What the heck?
I think we're all getting the same initial lines
and we're
is
just
what's
adding
going
to
on.
each one. Oh.
So you have to finish a whole
You
drawing.
have to finish a whole drawing for each one.
Oh, that makes much more sense.
I have no idea what to do for that. Oh, I got it. So we're seeing everyone's like interpretation of.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's out there? Yeah, that makes more sense. So, sorry in advance to all of you for what I drew.
Oops.
Okay, so now that I know, I'm just gonna take a little more time to do this. Not too much.
I only kind of knew because I watched other people do it.
Oh, you can do custom colors if you double tap the main color thing.
Oh, really? Wow. That gives you a lot of
So
options.
much effort.
Yeah.
That's
You
cool.
know your color wheel. Just do this. Good enough. Throw that in there quickly.
That'll do.
No. No.
I made something weird.
It's not ready. It's not time.
But it is time.
Good enough.
But it is ready.
It needs 10 more minutes.
Battle
It's
is
frozen.
Da, 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 da. I mean, what?
If we do this again, I'm going to do much more random lines to start with.
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh my god.
Oh, I know what I could do with this. What color is that, though? Oh, why is that brown? I know how to make this work.
Oh my gosh.
I took an interpretation of the lines I was given.
I hate it! Oh dear.
It was a liberal interpretation.
Very much so.
I'll do.
I need that shade of color. No, that's not what I want to do at all.
That's what she said. Question mark. Oof.
Okay.
Oh my god. Now I've seen your stream though, and I haven't done that prompt yet, so I'm like, what am I gonna draw on this?
Exactly.
What even is that?
Yeah, especially if you just looked up after I started drawing, you don't know what the starting lines are.
Yeah, I have no idea what that started with.
Is that an ant ripping ass?
What?
Why, sir?
I'd never.
Why, sir, did you pass the water? Indubitably.
I'm gonna regret doing some of those abstract lines now, I think.
Oh, he needs a monocle.
Yeah.
Ooh, suits you, sir.
Indubitably.
Mid-drink. You need the monocle. Mid-drink. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Indubitably, my good chap, I passed gas.
The distinguished
alright.
passed gas.
Hang about, I've got a drawing here of the ant, but it's only the outline. What? Okay.
Oh yeah, I got that one. I don't know what the hell that was.
It's gonna go very weird with what I got. No, go color this time. Okay, now I'm just art flexing. I don't know if I should apologize for this or not.
Yeah.
Can't talk. Drawing.
Everyone got real focus. It's beautiful though. We'll get to see the horrific, I mean beautiful artwork that we're making.
Mm-hmm.
No, you were right the first one with me.
Oh my god, I keep leaving the fill tool on. Tapping things.
When in doubt, just fill it. Oh my god, it's like the Great Mighty Pooh.
Maybe.
Oh.
That is one corny picture.
Aww.
I hate that I said that almost.
Frozen loo roller.
Yay!
We did it.
Wait, is that it?
No.
Oh.
Two more.
Two more. Oh, okay.
2 more. 5 out of 7.
Hooray.
Oh.
What even is that?
Should I go for the obvious?
What am I supposed to do?
I just got Tweak's image, but without all the extra they already added.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, we're getting the initial prompts each, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what I'm gonna do. Here. What?
The dummy thick is back.
It's back.
god.
Oh my god, I did it again. I still don't know how to interpret this. I'm just drawing random stuff.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Mine went very strange. I'm interested to see what everyone else did with these prompts.
Running out of time.
Yeah, it's sort of like, because there's so little time, like, what's the first thing that pops in my head?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm not focusing on, like, this is why I don't think skill matters.
Yeah.
I tried to draw ciabatta with a bready apron.
Oh, fantastic.
There you go. Yeah.
Nice.
At yeast you tried.
Oh god.
What even is this?
I don't even know what this is, but okay.
I just got yours now.
Should I go nightmarish with this?
Yes.
Alright.
Which is kind of funny because I feel like I'm doing the same thing.
I almost wish it had sensitivity for the brushes, but that'd be kind of a little unfair to the
Might be
mouse users.
overkill for this game.
Yeah! I'll just have to
A little.
There's more time.
Phew. That was a chair.
Kind of copped out on this one because my manager messaged me.
That's fair. Don't want you getting in trouble.
It's still cute though. Still cute. Oh hey, that's mine. Great interpretation.
That was a tree.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Oh, majestic.
Whee!
I'm excited for these. Now that I understand what the prompt was.
No, that makes more
That's so
sense.
cool.
They almost need a, like at the starter page, a thing you can click on that just does like a quick video, you know?
Yeah, that'd be useful.
Okay.
Let's see these gems.
What did I even do as my thing? Oh yeah, it was just that. Yeah.
Oh, right, that was yours.
Okay.
Oh.
I just had that
Now
one.
we get to see.
Oh, okay, that's
Aw,
good.
cute.
Go.
There you go.
I love this. This is such a good idea.
Oh, that's a
Oh,
good one
similar
too.
idea. You wanted the goblet idea?
Yeah, the goblets are good.
Goblet.
Ah.
Metal,
Metal
yeah,
goblet
fair
and
enough.
goblet.
Mature.
Oh, ooh. Okay.
Yes.
Is that a murder trivia reference?
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, very Game of Thrones.
Wow. I like how many different cups we basically got out of that.
Yeah.
Huh.
5
I didn't
cups
even
and
see
1
a cup,
goblet.
I just saw a
Yeah.
mannequin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had
Okay, so
no
that was that
idea.
one.
Okay, that was you.
That was
Ah.
me. Suffer.
Oh.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh,
I had
alright.
fun with that one.
Angel.
Yeah. Body pick. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Neat.
Yeah.
I got really into this one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. Superman the poop. No.
Hey.
Apron.
Aw.
Hey.
Aww.
Oh, the apron is coming off.
That's
I got very
undead.
Yeah, the random line
I
prompts
wonder who
definitely
had the mouse pad.
Yeah, random lines are definitely really good. That's cool.
Good start.
Excellent.
Yay.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, we had similar ideas.
Nom 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 nom.
Oh, nom 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 nom.
Nice.
Mine
That's
will
what a
show
bomb
me
is.
suffering.
Oh.
I appreciate whoever did the Pac-Man one because
That's
I had a similar idea.
Oh, okay, yeah. Thought bubble.
Okay.
Ah.
I didn't get to finish coloring the teeth; it got messed up.
Oh, right.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that was a lot of different ones.
The agony of the streamer.
Yeah, seeing the.
I got your hole.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Hot dog or something.
Hot dog. Oh.
Get out of here!
Get out of here!
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, no. Wait, so me and Soot both immediately went to food.
Oh, that's the opposite of eating.
Yeah, that one's the opposite of eating. Oh.
That's my Eldritch style drawing.
That's my dream demon.
That's us before we get coffee in the morning.
My sleep paralysis. Oh.
So yeah, I did this one. I was wondering what you guys were gonna do, and I have regrets instantly. I saw.
Okay. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Oh man, I feel real bad about what I did.
You soiled it. You soiled it.
Oh god. Oh, that's good.
I like that.
Oh, cool.
Forcing it to listen to a trombone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, cat. Oh,
Oh
stinky
my god,
cat.
this is part one. Great.
I was like, oh, it's a cat. Oh, it's a stinky cat.
It's got a butthole.
Yeah, I had a little dot for a butthole.
Oh, this one was interesting. Beer.
Would have added more to it.
Hey, made it work.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
I don't know. Pac-Man Mario mix.
Pac-Man Mario. That is pretty good.
Stop with the guy.
Yeah, the butts.
Go.
Why? Is something you want to tell? Maybe not. Maybe not. Never mind.
Is
there something you want to know?
Transylvania.
Maybe not. Probably not.
Yes, it's Invisible Man from Hotel Transylvania.
Oh, yeah. Invisible Man.
That's what the vampire was earlier from that first drawing.
And the variation.
Flubby.
Ah, so that was the tree.
Okay, I'm back. I had to flee. I felt like a thump. Something fell from the ceiling, and I looked, and there was like a giant ass centipede. I was like scrambling to get it.
Yeah.
And
Maybe call a party.
it was terrifying.
Ah, should do
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh.
He is one of the first ones I got, and I wasn't sure what I was doing still, so I was still.
Yeah.
I made it work.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's a good one.
chill.
Yeah.
I'm in danger.
And the little gnome behind the tree.
I like that one.
Get
That was
gnomed.
fun.
Get gnomed. That was good. That was fun. We should try that again now that we know it's.
That's what you get for not using Travelocity.
Yeah, I would like to.
If you want to hop in, there's the link. If you want to join us for some Garton. No one's fast as Garton. No one's ass blast like him.
Oh my god.
Oh, that was I tried.
Okay. Now that I know a little bit more of what we're doing.
Yep. I'm ready. Faster first turn. Yeah, I see. So that was just so the lines are fast. Okay. And all players play a turn. Okay. Are we good? Going once? Going twice?
Oh, did the goblin
3, 2, 1.
Ape.
I don't want to do this one this time.
Sketch some basic lines.
I'll let people work with that.
Sure, let's try that.
Avert ye eyes. Okay, there we go. Oh.
Okay, I can work with this. By the way, it's not the tapping of my pen furious on the tablet. Don't mind that.
I'm actually not hearing anything, so that's fine.
Okay. Good. My mic is filtering it out. Right, pressure sensitivity is not a thing. I gotta remember that.
Oh, that's the starting line. Okay, that's fine. Was real for a second. Yeah, that's good enough. I don't really know what else I want to do with that scene. It was unseemly.
Ooh, I like this one. I actually like this one. I'm gonna make this very Deep Rock Galactic related.
Yes.
I can quit that game anytime I want. I can put the pick down anytime I want.
Anytime.
Anytime.
I don't have a problem. You have a problem.
Problem is you don't play enough Deep Rock Galactic.
Yeah. That's the real problem right here.
Okay, I need to not get too detailed again.
No idea what to do with that one. Oh my gosh.
I am afraid.
Be afraid.
That laughter usually means scary things for someone like me.
With Dharma, always.
Oh dear.
Oh no.
No, wrong tool, wrong tool, wrong tool. Mine came out surprisingly cute.
Mine's cursed.
Ones are full.
Oh my god.
I went full villager.
Did.
Okay, undo all that. Come on. Okay, think this first. Think this through.
Oh god.
Notice I just turned everything into a face.
What's a face?
In the face.
In
All around me are familiar faces.
Going nowhere.
I find that kind of funny and a little bit sad, really.
That one was fun.
It's a little rougher than I like, but I kind of like the interpretation I got going.
How does one draw an ear?
Pardon me.
I don't know how to draw an ear. They're like
a
round.
They're
but
complicated
weird.
shape. They have that. The inner part is very complicated when you, especially if you're not used to
The
drawing.
inner part of an ear is weird.
What, you don't like my ear? No, I'm just...
Ear?
I ear that.
Ear.
Beer.
Beer.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, this one's this one looks a little too familiar. Not sure I should draw it, but
if it's, you think it's bad for Twitch,
yeah,
like,
I'm not going to.
Probably good idea.
Like make it like less.
Excessive use of censor bars and redacted. Oh, neat. I just found out they don't let you erase the original lines, which is good, because that'd be cheating.
You can draw over them, though.
True.
You can.
I did that once or twice to change the color.
Just slightly altered the shape just enough. I forgot I was allowed to talk.
Whisper. Shh. Whisper.
I could sing. Wait, what?
I can fight.
I fight for my friends.
Round one, fight.
Ooh, that was close.
Oh, that's a little crocodile.
We got two more, don't we? To this one.
Yep, two more. Oh.
Oh. My brain immediately not appropriate. Okay.
No, you must have got the one I got then. Okay. I have no idea what to do with this one.
I got a really abstract shape, so I'm gonna go really abstract drawing with it.
I'm going to draw you. There's in the dangly part in your throat. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm drawing, but I'm just going with the whatever this is. Oh, I'm running out of time. Crap. No.
I just start scribbling harder as the timer goes.
I don't know what to do. Just style a share.
Stay the share.
Apples and a pear.
I'm so sorry for what I just drew.
Just one more.
Oh, that was hard. I couldn't think of anything for the lines I started with.
Oh, that one was hard.
Oh.
I think I found the one somewhere talk about being afraid of what to draw on. What do you know? I'm drawing the face this time.
What am I going to add to this?
What are you not going to add to it?
Is there an eraser? Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
That one doesn't get any color.
Maybe I'll...
Yay! Oh yeah, I forgot what I made as the prompt. I wonder what people are gonna do for that.
I think I forgot mine as well. I remember vaguely.
I made a prompt that might have caused people to think about things they shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's definitely the one.
Oh, now I remember. I think I'm working on that one now. I completely did something not unwholesome, so
okay, good.
That'll work out. That's kind of my ability. I can make things that look wholesome, I guess.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm like, this could be a lot of things. One of those things could be pretty bad.
Oh no, why?
The gut reaction. Like,
yeah.
It's not right on time.
I'm actually kind of proud of the last one.
Okay, here it is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the
It's just two circles in a line. Yeah, see, that's a good one.
Hey, I had a similar idea, but different.
Oh,
We all had similar ideas, but like,
oh, that's a good one. Oh, jeez.
I like how we're all just doing bases. So it works.
It has to be.
It's perfect. There
we go.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
nice.
Money.
I might have gone a little.
Oh, I love that.
The fear of choosing what to draw.
He's
Yeah.
real
Oh
sweaty.
god.
He's looking real little sweaty there.
He's scared.
Oh, this one was hard.
I actually like this.
I
I figured out something really cool for this one.
A lot of fun with this.
Oh!
Wacky waving inflatable arm tube man.
Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. The wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. The wacky waving
I saw that costume at a Halloween store and I was so tempted.
I had a lot of fun with that one.
Oh, that was cool.
Wiggly.
Blooper.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Yes.
Ooh.
Beautiful.
Gargonzola?
Ah, majestic.
Demi doggo.
Demo puppy.
No
It's
boo.
cat dog, but
Bone Tubu or not Tubu?
Schrodinger's ghost.
I like it.
Oh, you're
that
the
was
one
a
that
good
did
one.
that.
Yeah.
Hey.
This is the one I liked.
I like to, yeah, it's going kind of similar to Tweak, give people creative freedom.
Oh,
I mean,
Steve.
Steve.
Yeah, I love that, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Steve!
nice.
You're a good bug, Steve.
Yes!
No, that's a good
I
one.
love that.
It's the king of Kopi.
Cheese.
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 Ooh.
Yes.
Yup. I like.
Kobo drinking some cheese.
Oh, jeez.
Very good.
Oh, Lucy!
I hear cat.
You heard the kitty?
Hey, yo.
Aw,
That's
it's
him
a flower.
yelling for
or
a
is
tent.
it?
Or is it?
Flower.
Fire flower.
Hey, Mario.
As soon as I saw this, I'm
I'm
like, it
so
could be
sorry.
a flower. Or
It could be a bum.
I want the
Bomb?
Can you tell that most of my childhood just playing a lot of video games? A
Aw.
lot of video
It's a flamingo and lawn gnomes.
I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna
I gotta go. I gotta go.
I'm gonna pollinate that flower so hard.
So cute.
I'm gonna frick that.
I'm gonna pollinate that flower so hard.
What am I doing here?
Oh my.
Oh my.
Oh, this
Yeah,
was an
that's what you
interesting
guys
one.
did with this one.
This was interesting, yeah.
If I'm really abstracted.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
He's eating cookies.
I like that.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
see, I just see another thing that I got.
I think it went weird with this too.
He's eating onions and
good.
crying.
Ooh.
Oh,
Peanut
Biblically accurate.
I'm a little
Peanut
bit
a raid? So we're being raided by eyeball
like
guy.
braid.
nice.
Oh,
It's like a
Pikachu
magician.
versus
Yes,
Almanite.
really, yeah.
yeah.
When you have to end your stream early, be not a raid!
Oh, the battle's ready.
Oh,
Excellent, excellent.
Panic.
The battle is ready.
The battle.
Oh, this was
But
interesting.
this one was interesting. I tried to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, this was good.
Ooh, evil.
I'm not sure if I got my idea across, but I still like the idea I had at least.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It's your bomb.
Would you like an apple?
It's a
Have
buff
a heart.
arm.
The heart.
That is a buff arm.
Oh.
So I guess I was trying to make it look like a rival tech
Love
world
it.
type thing, but
Yeah.
I think it's finished coloring it.
Whoa.
Ooh, okay, that's cool.
That's cool.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Those were different, yeah. A lot of people had the hand idea, that you two did like way different.
I don't know, I thought of a demon
Oh.
hellhound type thing.
Oh, I remember what I did for this one. I kept mine simple on this one.
I don't remember
I'm
what
sorry,
it is.
Tweak.
Chicken in the road.
There's a dead goblin in the road, and they're cheering.
It's what everyone wants in
Oh.
Deep Rock.
Aw.
Enderman.
Is he sleeping?
So I had to go back to the
Dead.
retro
Oh.
classics.
Oh, I was thinking about that one. I went with
Oh,
that.
Superman.
Nice.
Second appearance of Superman.
Oh,
Yep.
Cloud.
Alright.
yep, the big sword. This one's good.
I may not play Final Fantasy, but that sword is recognizable anywhere. Plus the hair.
Hooray. What other presets do we have to try?
What's sandwich?
Yeah, we battle over an hour.
Start writing and keep drawing until the end. Finally describe the last drawing. So is it like we all go in order or something? Start writing and keep drawing until the end.
I don't know.
You also have a battle. Battle is
writing only at the beginning and the end. Oh, it's basically the thing we were gonna try, I think. Like we start with a sentence and then it keeps going.
I'm gonna head off.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you for coming out and
thank you.
Enjoying the Gartic phone.
Bye, neighborino. I just mixed. What's his name? The doctor.
Dr. Nick with Ned Flanders.
Yeah, I did that by accident.
It's dangerous.
Okay, neighborino. Take care.
Take care.
I got it.
Hey, y'all. There's a cat attacking me on my lap.
Yo.
But anything like chicken attack, but more painful.
Yeah.
He likes to numb toes.
Anytime my hand goes for the mouse, he's like, no, bring it back. Bring it back. Give me the pet. I want hand. I know.
Give pet, or get chomp.
He just punched me in the face.
Oh. Well, that's violent.
Yeah.
He's a little violent. Just a little bit.
Oh, he vibrates too.
Cat go burr.
Cat go burr.
Okay. Next round. Let's do cat.
Place a unit, you fool.
Okay, I'm actually gonna take the original sentence and twist it around.
Oh, I meant to be doing a thing.
Actually, maybe not. That would be kind of disturbing. I just realized maybe I shouldn't do that.
Oh, sentences again.
Lucy. Lucy. No claw. Only paw. No claw, only paw.
It's the claw! Mine is a very abstract sentence again. Good luck.
Oh, let's do another one, right? That's almost over, yeah.
I didn't know what to put.
I kept it simple this time. You're welcome.
Yeah, I know. I set him on the floor and he immediately mad at me. He's like, no. Okay.
No.
Oh, he's going over to Suits.
Oh no.
Money spending. This is an interesting round.
Oh, I heard that.
Yeah, he's being needy.
Oh.
Poor baby.
What a suck.
Give him a big old kiss.
Oh, he's right next to you.
Yeah,
That's why.
he's right next to me, yeah.
He's had it with this 3-day stream. Like, he's done.
Yeah, he's like, when do I get the attention for 3 days? Don't grab my headset. Don't grab my headset.
No, it's my headset now.
Don't grab
I don't know why I made your cat sound creepy. I apologize.
Oh my gosh, where is the gap that these things are going through? Okay.
I may have planned the positioning of this drawing a little poorly, but heck it.
It is what it is now.
Yeah.
Just gotta go with it.
Hello, why are you whiny?
That's the worst drawing of one of those I've ever done. Heck, it gets the idea across. That's the important thing. memorize the drawing, you're gonna replicate it. Okay.
What? Okay.
We have time.
Oh, that's not what I expected. Okay.
Okay.
We have to draw it now?
Yep.
Oh god, okay. Oh, I already forget it. Okay, this is fine. This is fine.
I'm glad mine was simple.
Same. I may have made it a little more difficult for some people on mine, so apologies, I guess. Oh dear. Oh, I forgot some of the details already. Oh, heck.
That's all I'm giving it.
Gonna give us some artistic liberties. Was there? Oh, I don't remember if there was that part of it or not. Oh heck!
Okay. I think I was pretty close.
Oh god.
Was there wings? I don't remember if there were wings.
What's your face a wing?
I tried my best.
So we all have to keep drawing the same art? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen.
I'm gonna go under the assumption that this had wings. It's close enough.
Sure.
I stuck with some of the original source, but then I went completely left wing with it.
Oh dear.
Oh yes.
I thought we were supposed to imitate. Oh no.
It's all gonna go horribly wrong now.
Horribly right.
I think I got what it was.
I think I got my face.
I get it.
Draw scenes.
Well, we're figuring out all the different game modes.
Yeah, this was the first one's still probably my favorite. I did like that.
Yeah,
that line
that was
one though. That was cool.
Yeah, that was my favorite too.
Oh god.
You're gonna replicate. I mean, we could also just draw this in our own style instead of like doing it like 1-to-1 scale.
Okay.
That was an easy one.
Who knows if this was close to the first drawing, though? That's the question.
Is it going to be like each person's drawing that they've drawn goes to the next person, and they have to interpret?
That's what I.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
That's
So
what I
we'll
think's
see how far
happening.
it gets from the other
Yeah.
one.
I took some artistic liberties of mine.
Your face is an artistic liberty.
Oh, but it's more of an artistic Lincoln.
Thank you for following. Nezuko the Demon.
How goes?
It's Nezuko the Demon.
How are you?
I said Tesco the Demon then. I was going to say, wait, what?
What's wrong with Tesco?
We're doing some Gartic phone currently.
Welcome to the chaos of this.
I'm sure it beats Walmart the Demon.
Oh, got an hour and a half left of our subathon.
It's crazy.
Oh,
We
day
might
3.
be able to be free soon.
I'll have to do this, I'll do this giveaway at the end of this one. We're doing a Fable Anniversary giveaway for anyone who's subbed and wants to hop in.
Yes.
You're doing good too, that's good to hear.
Glad to hear it.
It's a very, very chill Tuesday. It's weird that it's a Tuesday. Just from it's like I started streaming on a Sunday, that's weird.
Yeah.
Hurry.
Oh.
Trying to drink water, but I can't. Oh no.
What is that?
Why?
The heck are these?
What?
Okay.
Oh, this is gonna be a hard one. I already forgot them all.
Yeah. Must make juicier.
Juicy.
Oh, what colors was in that one? Oh, yeah. Just gonna guess it was this. I think that's what was one of them.
Hello, Serenity. How have you been? How have you been, Serenity? Hope you're doing well.
We're doing good. We're doing good. We're just doing some Gartic phone because we hit our Gartic phone goal.
Oh, draw a scene so others can describe it. So now we're describing for the last one?
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh, I thought it said imitate it. Wait a minute.
Oh, it's probably because we're on the
next
last
round.
Yeah.
You have to write down what you think it is, and we'll see how far off we got.
You beat Dragon Origins. Nice.
Nice, nice. That's good.
Which Origins of Dragon is it though?
The ancient ones.
The age.
Only the old dragons.
I'm not sure if my drawing will have to describe what I saw, but
that's a pretty old dragon.
And Serenity, if you're subscribed, which I see that you are, we're doing game giveaways.
Yeah, so right now
so
it's
feel free to
Fable
enter.
Anniversary.
Yes.
Exclamation mark ticket to enter if you want. Only
Yep.
What the heck?
We should be doing our next one soon, actually.
Sure. That's it, right?
Yeah, totally.
I'm looking at what's on the screen right now, and I'm the first one that drew this prompt, and it's really funny to me. So.
Oh, now I have to describe the prompt. Okay.
Oh god.
What do we think it was?
It's funny because that was the opposite of what it started as.
Well,
Yes.
Cat on the left.
Yeah, the current giveaway's Fable Anniversary. I would definitely recommend getting in on that. Anyone that's subbed.
Cat on the left. Oh.
Anyone that's subbed.
That is not a cat.
No. It's a butt though.
Butt.
Butt. Uh-oh.
How did a cat turn into a butt?
It's actually a W.
Blue butt sitting on a chair.
Yep.
The cat laptop.
I thought it was someone like scanning their butt. Like
this one made it 1. It made it 1.
I put a W for window.
Victorian Moth Lady.
3.
Oh, that's what that
Nice.
is.
Victorian Moth Lady. Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. I got two details wrong before I can tell.
Oh, Baldur's Gate 3. Nice. Okay, that looks good so far.
It's gonna diverge wildly.
This is that's what that prompt was?
Angel is ascending.
I didn't even get
she did.
Oh, darn, that made it pretty far.
That's good.
That made it halfway.
Pretty
It started being here, and then I was way off.
I just couldn't be bothered.
This one.
Yay,
Extra nugget.
Oh.
It ended up opposite.
Oh. So,
I could not retain
Oh,
this.
okay. That's why
I was so sloppy.
Only 7? Wait a minute, these are still selling pizzas.
Oh, that was a good one.
Only 7. Uh-oh. I was way off with this.
Okay, I mean, I got... Yeah. It's
Only
not that
7.
nuggets.
Me off. Only 7.
7 eggs.
What kind of eggs are you eating?
Egg.
It's like they've already turned into chicken and then back to eggs.
Yeah, they reverted from cooked chicken
Money
all the way
spending
back to
at
egg.
the cinema.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's what that was.
I'm sorry.
Money spending.
I thought it was like a
cinema.
game show.
Oh.
Oh.
I didn't even bother
Copy
putting
here.
people. That's it.
Oh.
We don't need money or people.
That looks more like a theater, though. So.
But
this is where I had to follow.
The train.
Yeah.
But train, I don't want to go.
One of them has a butt.
It's the butt train. I like it. I like it.
Lost in time.
Oh, okay.
That's what that was.
Twilight Zone.
Okay, see, I tried to keep the colors as far as I can remember, but
Colors are the hardest. I'm like, I can remember what it looks like, but fuck the colors.
I think I've got the colors right. Oh, heck!
Cool.
This is your brains on drugs.
That's actually exactly what it is, right? Because you get lost in time when you're.
Yep.
Technically correct. That's kind of correct.
Oh my god.
It's perfect.
Your brain on drugs.
Now let's stay perfect.
Rainbow butterfly balloons.
Oh, I thought it was okay.
Okay, that's not what I did.
I definitely got that wrong.
It mutated for sure.
Those.
See, this is where I wait a minute. How can I?
It is so let's become butterflies and like weird nuggets.
It's very close to being the cake.
I like that ending.
I like that the spheres stayed pretty much the same. The butterflies.
I just realized to combine soul stones with regular stones and I just
make the butterfly. Less butterfly. Less butterfly. No butterfly.
Now they're asteroids.
Yep, they're asteroids. Yeah.
It kind of looks like the topping of a cake.
Not wrong, like a dessert.
That's good. That's good.
Oh, that's good.
I thought they were jelly beans. With
Kind of looked like a friendship bracelet at the end.
Oh, wow, this is funny.
What's the clock as your enemy?
The Infinity Gauntlet stones. That was funny.
So this one's the regular thing, but the timer is incredibly short.
Oh no.
Oh boy.
No color.
Got it. You basically just have to draw and type within like a minute, probably.
Oh.
So we'll see.
Shake out the old drawing hand.
If anyone wants to hop in, probably the worst one to hop in on, but you're more than welcome to join in.
So wait, what is the one we're doing?
It's called Speedrun.
Oh.
Yep. Tues will be very fast.
Channel your inner hedgehog and or
here we go. Full speed ahead.
Full speed!
You start with a prompt? Okay.
Oh my gosh, what is this? I didn't write a sentence. Oh!
Try not to make it too complicated.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's true. Everything's gonna be very fast.
I don't know. I don't know what my brain came up with, but there we go.
That was dead. Okay, that was satisfying.
Wow, that's fast.
How much time we got? Okay, that much. I can do this. I can do this. Oh no, that's wonky looking. Oh gosh.
Oh, can I actually draw some?
Oh fuck. Oh shit.
Why did I forget what it looks like?
Why
did I forget what this character looks like? Oh my gosh.
I'm just gonna like, fuck. Already fucked it up. Okay.
Okay, it's not quite that fast. We still got 3/4 of the timer.
Panic.
Everyone panic.
Panic and panic. All panic.
How do I draw a bottle?
You don't. That's the easy answer.
Let's draw a bottle.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Respect to whoever gave this prompt.
That was so quick. I'm not sure if I can.
Yeah. Okay, good enough. Good enough.
Yeah. Just speed
no
drawing.
one will guess what this is, but good enough.
Describe.
Oh, it's alternating like the first one.
Okay.
Oh, I have to describe it.
Oh, that was fast.
Yep.
I'm sorry. That's a bad prompt.
Oh
so
man.
You think,
what the hell is this?
I'm sorry. I forgot where I was. Okay.
Angler cat goes after Ritter. What?
Supposed to draw this?
Okay, I'm confused.
This is the weirdest thing I've drawn yet today.
Oh god.
And I've drawn a lot of weird stuff in my life.
I don't know how to draw this.
Oh my gosh, I'm not. Should I ask Tweak?
This is an interesting prompt. Okay, that's it.
That's it.
This one.
Okay, next one.
You got my prompt. That's so funny. I just slipped over real quick.
At least with this game, it's not really cheating. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, it's just funny.
What?
Oh, man.
Okay. Oh shit.
What the hell is that? I can't type. Typing.
God. Hurry up.
Okay. Oh, I just realized what this was. It wasn't what I thought.
Okay, so.
Oh,
okay,
man.
let's go.
I was way off. Okay.
Oh god. Okay, sure.
How do I draw this? It.
Yeah, go fast. Faster, faster.
I don't know how to draw this, so it is what it is.
Done.
That was the thing I drew. Okay. Man, that was awful.
We have made mistakes.
I'm just disappointed in this one.
Wait, that's it? That's level 6, okay.
Oh, that was quick. I actually had to make this my last one. I have.
Okay.
Let's see how good we are at fast drawing.
Alright, be
No.
prepared to laugh.
Okay, pause.
What?
That isn't a lie.
I have no idea where that came from. Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I think I see where this
Paddling
went.
pool.
Yeah, I know where this is.
Juniper's blue.
Yeah.
The pool paddling in a boat.
Okay, yeah.
In the ocean.
Blue in a
Oh my
boat.
god.
In a boat.
Yes!
Yeah. Nice.
Beautiful.
I like. Huh. I like it.
Or
Koji's
naked.
Pata much means super.
Oh.
sorry.
Oh!
I thought this would be funny. I thought this would be funny.
Okay, I got it now.
Angular cat goes after the
Oh.
Demonic cat.
cat wants some fucking mix.
Yeah.
Can't want some fucking nip.
Oh.
Cat goes touch grass.
Cat wants that nip. Oh, okay. I did not see this prompt,
I did
so it
not
definitely
see
I
this.
thought I had it, but then I forgot how he looked exactly, so I was like, eh, close enough.
It's up right there, criminal scum.
Yeah, that's, I was just like,
The
oh,
crew.
wait a minute.
Why? The crew.
What do you mean?
I typed RoboCop.
Untitled Goose gonna do a crime.
Oh.
I'm gonna do a
I
crime.
typed Roto.
It all comes full circle. RoboCop is after the goose.
Beautiful.
It all makes sense now.
Prepare for
Oh my god, that was a
I
nice.
draw that for
Pillow
$1.
yells at the dog.
Oh.
Oh, Pillow yells at the dog.
Oh, that's not.
Oh, did they
That's
Pillow
not-
get peed
Yell
on?
at a dog and make it pee.
Yell at the dog and make it pee.
Oh, no. This took a dark turn.
Bad doggy.
Doggy.
Ow. Oh no!
I panicked and it just ended up horrible.
Oh god, I was
like, I don't know.
That's not what I expected.
There's been a lot of poop in your stream today.
There has been. Oh, there we go.
Okay, I can't wait till it comes to mine.
Oh.
Okay, I mean, that's very accurate. At least.
Wow. I just realized that was the Call of the Lamb character.
Call of the Lamb.
Dog wondering about a
Call of the
ghost
Lamb is
cookie
amazing.
or ghost poo.
Oh god.
Ghost poo. Wow.
I gave you a choice there, I guess.
Oh man. Okay.
It's glue.
Even left, bro.
Oh, okay. I see where my drawing came into play.
Oh, okay.
Bodybuilder being chased by
I panicked so much for this.
Okay.
Wow, that's not what I expected.
Oh yes, that is.
Okay. Wow. Well, I guess the answer to your question is no.
Oh man, that was bad.
Belly button bad.
I just love that bodybuilder being chased by Jumpy Man in the middle.
Get back here, boy! Wait, no way, dude! I got a left brain.
Oh man, I was not expecting that.